Unbroken. The word burned through the silence, sharper than any blade, heavier than any chain. I stood there, motionless, as if carved from the very stone that surrounded me. They watched, waiting, searching for the smallest tremor in my hand, the slightest twitch in my face, anything they could twist into proof that I was weak. But I gave them nothing, not a blink, not a breath out of place. The air thickened between us, heavy with their expectation, suffocating with their doubt. They wanted me to collapse under their gaze, to bow, to fold, to shatter. But I refused. The refusal was not loud. It did not need to be. Silence can be louder than screams when it refuses to bend. Their eyes darted, nervous, pretending to mock me, hiding fear behind crooked grins and hollow laughter. First, one of them laughed, sharp, empty, desperate. Another followed, then the rest, like a pack of scavengers circling a wounded animal. But the animal they thought they had cornered wasn't wounded. It was watching, waiting, measuring. My stillness was not weakness, it was weight. Every second I didn't flinch became a stone on their chest. Every blink they gave became a confession. I felt their energy shift. At first they wanted to break me, then they wanted me to break myself. When neither happened, unease crept into their bones. They spoke louder, shouted, cursed, pushed, desperate to pull a reaction out of me. But the louder they became, the quieter I sank into myself. Inside, I wasn't trembling, I was sharpening. The storm inside me didn't scatter, didn't rage wild. It folded inward, tight and controlled, like a blade being drawn slowly from its sheath. And in that moment, when the silence grew unbearable, it wasn't me who cracked, it was them. They blinked one after another, flinching at the ghost of their own reflection in my eyes. They realized I wasn't playing their game. They realized the predator doesn't need to roar to hunt. I didn't move. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't fight. I simply stood, and the absence of reaction became the cut. The absence of fear became the blade. And in that silence, they knew I would not break. They pushed harder when silence didn't shatter me. Their voices grew sharper, the words dripping venom, slicing at every memory I carried. They wanted to remind me of every failure, every mistake, every weakness I had once shown. They thought if they buried me under the weight of my own past, I would finally fold. The truth, their words only rang hollow. I had already lived through the worst they could imagine. Their insults were echoes of wounds I had already bled out. You can't kill a man with scars. He's already survived the killing. But that didn't stop them from trying. They cornered me in shadows, pressed their hands into my shoulders, waiting for the slump, waiting for the crack. They laughed in my face, spit words that were meant to poison, and for a moment I saw it. their desperation. They weren't attacking me because they were strong. They were attacking me because they were terrified of what I might become if I stayed standing. Fear hides itself as cruelty. Weakness hides itself as power. Still, the pressure mounted. Nights became long corridors of voices clawing at the edges of my mind. Doubt crept in uninvited, whispering that maybe they were right. Maybe I was nothing but broken bones dressed in skin. The mirror became an enemy, a silent judge reflecting a face I could barely recognize. I stood over the sink staring into my own eyes, and for a flicker of a second I almost believed them. Almost. But almost is not enough to destroy me. The truth lingered beneath the surface. Every attack was fuel. Every insult was a stone on the pile. And stones don't bury me. They build me. The more they stacked, the heavier the silence inside me grew, pressing against my ribs, turning into something neither of us could yet name. They thought they were breaking me. They thought I was suffocating under their weight. But I wasn't gasping for air. I was learning how to breathe fire in silence. By the time their laughter faded into uneasy whispers, I had already realized something they hadn't. This wasn't my collapse. This was the cracking of the shell. What they saw as weakness was nothing but the sound of something darker being born. They thought they had me cornered. They thought the walls were closing in, that the pressure would crush me, that the silence I carried would finally split, and maybe for a moment they believed they had won. But then I laughed. Not the loud kind, not the kind you rehearse. No, mine was quiet, broken at the edges, sharp enough to cut glass. It slipped out when they least expected it. Their smiles froze, their confidence cracked. Because no one laughs like that when they're losing. No one smiles like that when the fire is eating them alive inside. The truth, I don't fight pressure. I bend it. I don't run from collapse. I dance on the ashes. Every insult, every push, every attempt to drag me down, it doesn't crush me. It entertains me. You don't see it, do you? You never realize that the one who smiles while bleeding isn't broken. He's free. Free from the game you're playing, free from your approval, your rules, your desperate need to matter. That's why I laughed, because I realized something you couldn't. All of this is a joke. You hit harder, and I laughed louder. You spat venom, and I grinned wider. And in that twisted moment, I saw it in your eyes. You weren't sure anymore who the victim was. You weren't sure if I was breaking or if I was enjoying the collapse too much to ever let it end. That's the thing about me. I don't need to win the way you think. I win by refusing to play your game. I win by turning pain into amusement. I win by reminding you that nothing you do matters, not to me. So laugh at me, mock me, try to humiliate me. Because with every word, every shove, every attempt to bury me, you only tighten the strings of the puppet show I'm running in my head. You think you're the audience, but you're the act. You think I'm the fool, but I'm the one who wrote the script. And the punchline, it's coming. You'll see it when the curtain drops and the silence swallows your laughter whole. They wanted to watch me fall. They stacked the stage with failure, draped the curtains in mockery, and dimmed the lights so the whole world could see my collapse. But when the spotlight hit, I didn't crumble. I smiled. Not because I was blind to the pain, not because I was immune. No, I smiled because I knew the truth. The pain was mine. The humiliation was mine. And when it belongs to me, you can't take it anymore. That's the joke no one gets. You can't break someone who already turned their own scars into punchlines. Their laughter echoed like knives, but every blade dulled the second it touched me. I twisted each jeer into something new, something absurd, something so ridiculous it stopped hurting and started feeding me. They said I was weak. I clapped for them. They called me nothing. I bowed like an actor receiving applause. The more they mocked, the more I leaned into the performance, until suddenly I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the show. And they hated it, because deep down they realized I wasn't supposed to enjoy this. I wasn't supposed to turn my failure into fire. I wasn't supposed to stand in the ruins and laugh like it was the grand finale of some twisted play. They wanted me quiet. They wanted me broken. Instead, I gave them something worse, amusement. Because when you laugh at the wrong time, when you smile in the middle of the storm, you stop being human. You become the mirror that reflects their weakness back at them. Every insult they threw was a spark. Every shove was fuel, and I lit the stage with it, grinning while the ashes fell. That's the thing they never understood. I don't chase victory. I don't need redemption. I don't even care if I lose. What matters is the silence after the laughter. The silence when they finally realize I was never fighting them. I was fighting boredom. And nothing terrifies them more than the thought that all their cruelty, all their power, all their desperate noise was just entertainment for me. So yes, I laughed. I laughed because it hurt. I laughed because it burned. I laughed because when you've already walked through hell, the flames don't scare you anymore. They amuse you. And in that amusement, I found something sharper than revenge. Freedom. Awakened. That's the word they'll never forget. The night they thought they had buried me, I was already digging my way out, laughing at the dirt beneath my nails. They mistook silence for surrender. They mistook scars for shame. But what they never realized is that pain isn't the end, it's the mask. And when I wore it long enough, it stopped being disguise and became identity. I am not hiding. I am not recovering. I am becoming. You think the laughter means weakness? No. The laughter means I saw through the game. Pain doesn't own me anymore. It serves me. Rejection doesn't bury me. It builds me. Betrayal doesn't destroy me. It entertains me. You can throw your stones, your fire, your poison. I'll turn them into props, into fuel, into the next punchline of a show you'll never understand. And that's what terrifies you. I don't need revenge. I don't need validation. I don't even need to win. I only need to keep standing, keep smiling, keep proving that the world's sharpest knives can't cut through someone who already bleeds willingly. So listen closely. This isn't for them. This isn't for the ones who laughed first or blinked last. This is for you, the one watching. You've carried scars under your skin, swallowed fire until your lungs turned black, and still you breathe, still you stand, still you refuse to fall. And that makes you dangerous. Every breath you take is proof they failed to kill you. Every step you take is a rebellion they can't control. Now you face a choice. Stay silent or step into the dark with me. Hit that subscribe, not as support, not as a gift, but as a mark. A scar you carve on this place to say, I'm still here. Don't do it for me. Do it because you want to watch the world blink first. Do it because you're done waiting for permission. Do it because laughter in the face of ruin belongs to us. So rise, not as a hero, not as a savior, but as the joke they'll never laugh at again. Part 6. They thought the laughter was finished. They thought the act was over once I stood up from the wreckage. But the truth is, the show had only just begun. Power doesn't scream when it's born. It whispers. It crawls under the skin, slow and quiet, until the silence itself makes the room tremble. That's what I became, not louder, not angrier, just heavier. Every step I took sounded like a drum in their ears, even when I moved in silence. Every grin I carved into my face cut deeper than their insults ever could. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need to flip the table. I only needed to sit there, smile, and let them realize that the rules no longer applied. Their words started to stumble. Their voices shook when they rose against me. It wasn't because I fought harder. It was because I stopped fighting entirely. You see, when someone refuses to play, the game collapses. And when I refused, their confidence shattered first. It was amusing, really, watching their certainty dissolve, watching them blink and fidget like nervous animals under a spotlight they couldn't escape. They wanted me desperate. Instead, I gave them calm. They wanted me broken. Instead, I gave them laughter. And in that twisted equation, calm became violence. Laughter became threat. That's the irony. They created the monster they feared most, but dressed in a clown's smile. You don't realize how fragile power is until it faces someone who doesn't want it. I didn't want their approval. I didn't want their mercy. I didn't even want their respect. All I wanted was the silence after their laughter died, the silence that proved I had already won. Because winning isn't about standing on top. It's about refusing to kneel in the first place. And once you've learned to stand still in the middle of a storm, no one can move you. So I let them talk. I let them scream. I let them burn themselves out. And when their voices cracked, when their strength slipped away, all that was left was me. still smiling, still standing, still unbroken. The presence alone was enough. They didn't know it yet, but they were already losing, because the joke was no longer mine, it was on them. Part 7. They kept waiting for the moment I would explode, for the crack in my smile, for the madness to spill out loud and violent. But that's not how it works. Chaos doesn't always arrive screaming. Sometimes it walks in quietly, sits down, and refuses to leave. That's what I had become. Quiet chaos. They wanted a war they could understand, fists and fury, but instead I gave them silence, and silence is a language far more terrifying. Every glance I threw their way was enough to bend the air around us. They couldn't explain it, but they felt it. My laughter was no longer sound. It was presence. It clung to them, followed them, echoed in the empty corners of their minds when the room went quiet. They thought I was mocking them. Maybe I was, but more than that, I was rewriting the rules. Because when you stop fearing loss, you stop playing by anyone's terms but your own. I didn't strike back. I didn't need to. Watching them unravel was enough. Their movements became restless. Their jokes stumbled into silence. Their confidence drained drop by drop. And I stayed the same, smiling, steady, untouchable. It drove them insane. They wanted to see me beg or scream or crumble, but what they saw instead was someone who enjoyed every second of their desperation. That's the joke they couldn't laugh at. The more they tried to control me, the freer I became. And here's the truth. Once you've stepped outside their game, you don't return. There's no going back to weakness once you've tasted the strength of indifference. They were chained to outcomes, desperate to win, terrified to lose. I was chained to nothing. That's why I could walk through their fire and come out laughing. They burned with need, I burned with freedom. So I kept smiling, I kept standing. And every time they blinked, I blinked slower. Every time they shook, I grew calmer. Until at last, they understood. The joke wasn't mine anymore. The joke was them. They tried to ignore me. That was their last mistake. Pretend I wasn't there. Pretend the silence wasn't filling every corner of the room. Pretend the smile wasn't carved into my face like it had always been there. But you can't ignore a presence that refuses to leave. You can't ignore the shadow that laughs without sound. The harder they tried, the louder I became, not with noise but with weight. My existence pressed against them like a vice, and they couldn't breathe. I didn't need to speak. Words are fragile. They break. They fade. But silence never dies. It lingers, it seeps, it coils itself around your spine until you feel it in your bones. That's what I gave them. No speeches, no threats. Just the unshakable certainty that I would not move. And in that stillness, in that grin that never bent, they began to collapse. One by one, shoulders sank, eyes darted, confidence cracked. They had built a world where weakness was death, but here I was, standing in the ruins, and I wasn't dead. I was laughing It terrified them because they finally understood. I wasn't here to fight them. I wasn't here to prove them wrong. I wasn't even here to win. I was here to exist. And existence itself, unyielding, grinning, unbroken, was the sharpest weapon I could ever wield. How do you destroy someone who has nothing left to lose? How do you silence someone who already turned silence into a scream? You don't. You blink. You falter. You crumble. And that's exactly what they did. Their empire of noise, their fortress of cruelty, their theater of mockery, it all fell apart the moment they realized I wasn't part of the script anymore. I had stolen the stage, stolen the lines, stolen the ending. They had tried to bury me in ashes, but I rose laughing, and now every time they breathe, they taste the smoke. And the best part, I didn't need to lift a finger. I didn't need to strike or burn or rage. All I had to do was stand there, smile, and let the silence spread. That was the punchline. That was the victory. And they never saw it coming. They started to whisper when I wasn't around. That's when I knew the transformation was complete. My presence had leaked into the walls, into the air, into the back of their skulls where silence gnaws louder than any scream. They didn't need me in the room anymore to feel me. Every shadow became mine. Every pause in their sentences carried my grin. They blinked before they even saw me. They lowered their voices, though I hadn't spoken a word. That's how fear works when it takes root. It doesn't need chains. It doesn't need weapons. It just grows. I walked through their world without raising a hand, and yet the ground shifted. Doors grew quieter when I passed. Conversations snapped shut like traps. They pretended I wasn't there, but the weight in their eyes betrayed them. They felt me like a storm before it breaks, a pressure in the chest, a ringing in the ears, a silence that crushes bone. I didn't threaten them. I didn't need to. My stillness was already the threat. My smile was already the blade. And it amused me, watching their masks crack, watching their voices die, watching the same people who once roared with laughter now tremble in the wake of a silence they couldn't understand. That was the joke. They had built their power on noise, and I had taken it all away without saying a word. In the quiet, they were nothing. In the quiet, I was everything. Their fear wasn't about what I had done. It was about what I might do. The unknown is sharper than any knife. They didn't know when I'd move, if I'd move, or whether I even needed to. The tension itself became the punishment. I didn't strike, but they flinched anyway. I didn't burn, but they smelled smoke. I didn't speak, but they heard the laughter echoing in places it didn't belong. And that's when I realized I didn't need to win their game. I had already rewritten it. I wasn't a player anymore. I was the silence between their breaths, the shadow behind their backs, the joke they couldn't escape. My existence had become their collapse. That's all it takes. A single word dropped like a match into a room soaked in gasoline. They wanted me broken, wanted me bent, wanted me erased. But here I stand, still smiling, still unshaken, still untouched by their noise, and that's the truth they'll never accept. I didn't survive their fire, I became it. I didn't escape their storm. I am the storm now. Look at them, eyes lowered, voices trembling, laughter long dead. They don't speak my name anymore, not because they've forgotten, but because they can't. The sound of it burns their tongues. The memory of me crawls through their bones. I am not a story they tell. I am the silence that makes them choke on their own. And silence, unlike them, doesn't die. I don't need revenge. I don't need their apology. I don't need their recognition. The joke has already been written. The punchline already delivered. They blinked first, always. And I didn't even move. That's the power they'll never understand. Power that doesn't chase, doesn't plead, doesn't ask. Power that simply is. And when you face it, you either shatter or you look away. So listen carefully, because this isn't their ending, it's yours. You came here, searching for strength, for something to drag you out of the pit they threw you in. But the truth is, you don't climb out, you burn the pit. You don't beg them to see you, you force them to look away. That's the freedom they can't stand, the freedom you take when you stop caring who approves. Now carve it into the dark. Subscribe, not for me, not for them, for yourself. As a scar, as a reminder, as a mark that you stood here unbroken. This is your rebellion. This is your laugh in the face of ruin. This is the moment you decide that silence belongs to you. And me, I don't need to say more. You wanted this, you made this, and now this is who I am. The joke you can't escape, the shadow you can't silence, the smile you'll never erase.